Ce qui m'a poussé à choisir cette vie de protestataire, c'est un sentiment de, comment je dis maintenant, de révolte millénaire. Tous les peuples, dans tous les siècles, sont méprisés par leurs dirigeants. On leur marche dessus. Donc quelque part, quand je porte mes grands panneaux, c'est comme un cri. Je ressens ça à travers moi et je porte leur souffrance. C'est beau.
For retired school teacher Jean-Baptiste Reddé, many of his days over the past decade have been something like this. Travel to Paris carrying along cardboard and markers, design a protest sign and join those out on the streets. From climate change and pension reform to France's minimum wage and the situation in the Middle East, Reddé is out on the front lines. At nearly 2 meters tall, his towering presence has become as iconic as his protest posters. How many demos he has attended? Reddé says he is simply not keeping count.
Quand on lutte, c'est comme quand on aime.
Protesting is like loving. You can't put a number on it. I don't count, I just go. I usually prepare my signs before the protest, in a café or even on the street if I'm running late.
Je rumine en moi le slogan.
I think long and hard about the most catchy slogan. And all the causes I care about are connected. Social and climate justice, world peace and respect for human and animal rights. It's all close to my heart and all linked. I strive towards harmony.
In a country known for its protest culture, Reddé, who goes by an alias Voltuan inspired by French literature, is one of its most dedicated demonstrators. He often features in national and international media, has his own Wikipedia page, and his colourful signs have even made it into France's school history books. According to France's Public Order and Traffic Department, on average, there's a protest in Paris every 4 hours. The country's penchant for protest may be a stereotype, but it reflects a dedication to dissent that is ingrained in the country's history.
In France, it really is an intrinsic part of political culture. There's a sense that politics isn't something that just happens within formal institutions, that people can make their voices heard, that they have a role to play in political life. And episodes of protest have really punctuated French history and brought about very important change. But really the pivotal event in defining France's tradition of protest is the French Revolution of 1789, an act of mass protest against the monarchy. And it is really out of this act of protest that the modern French democratic system has emerged.
Our political tradition is extremely confrontational. And it might come from the absolute monarchy, people like Louis XIV in the 17th century, establishing the idea that the king really has all power. And even though we overthrew the king, our presidential regime, which is not supposed to be that, but it is actually that, means that there's a confrontation between a kind of absolute monarch on one side and the people on the other one, so that there's very few agent of transmission between those two bodies, except for protest.
One of the most powerful standoffs between France's president and the people came to a head in May 1968.
Basically, I think a lot of people now do want revolution. They want to change the system.
Disillusioned with the conservative, patriarchal and autocratic rule of Charles de Gaulle, a former general who'd been in power for nearly 10 years, students at university campuses sparked an uprising that soon spread to factories around the country. Mass, at times violent protests morphed into general strikes, at its peak involving some 10 million workers. The revolt paralyzed France's economy for weeks, nearly brought down the government, and would irreversibly transform French society.
The École des Beaux-Arts, School of Fine Arts here in Paris, was at the heart of the May 68 uprising. In an attempt to upend the old order, students and teachers turned this prestigious art school into a workshop, the Atelier Populaire, tasked with designing protest posters. The aim was to print the revolution, to use art as a tool to organize and galvanize the masses. Those posters have since become a symbol of France's protest culture. Their slogans, designs, continue to inspire activist movements to this day.
Over 2,000 posters were produced at the École des Beaux-Arts every day, and students went out and they stuck them on lampposts, on walls and buildings across Paris. And they were an important medium of communication. At the time, much of the French media was controlled by the state. And so the posters, I suppose it would be the equivalent of social media today. A lot of the posters derided the state. Many of the posters depict symbols of the workers' struggle. The students rejected the idea that their posters were art. They described them as weapons in the service of a struggle.
There was an ongoing idea that avant-garde art was made to change society. One of the interesting things is that many major artists of the time, like Roulier-Le-Parc or Bernard Rancillac, did some posters without signing them. And a lot of writers also went on doing the slogans. So it was this collective thing. And I think it made also for the quality of what was produced. A lot of what you see around us today in the world of protest in France is steeped into the imagery and model of what happened at the Atelier Populaire des Beaux-Arts in May 1968.
Et donc c'est très important ce mouvement pour moi.
This movement is very important to me, even though I was too young to participate in '68. I still experience the consequences. I still remember the posters. There was a lot of humor in the art, and some slogans have become quite famous, like "It's forbidden to forbid." The slogans were short and catchy, and some of them are still used on the streets today, as since '68, protests have seldomly stopped.
Des révoltes.
Whilst the spirit of '68 lives on France's streets, art no longer plays the same role it did in protest decades ago. The internet and the liberalization of the French media means activists no longer need posters to rally the people or get their word out. But arresting protest art still serves a powerful, invisible purpose: to pointedly deliver a political message to government, which the French, having a way with words, know how to do like no other.
There's a lot of self-critical, critical, irony aspects that is really ingrained in traditions. Untranslatable play on words is one of them. And there's always this kind of, romanticism when you do a protest in the street of Paris. You connect with earlier protests in the streets of Paris, like Liberty Guiding the People by Delacroix, this painting from 1830, something that is the very embodiment of the French spirit.
Et c'est vrai que dans la rue, on voit aussi pas mal d'artistes qui font.
It's true that in the streets, there are a lot of artists who use music, words, and visual art to express themselves at protests. I find it inspiring, as it's this collective that makes us succeed.
Mais ce qui me choque, c'est que.
But what shocks me is how few of us are out on the streets. Never have our struggles been so urgent. Climate change, social justice, world peace. We are on the brink of profound danger that threatens us all. And still, there are not enough of us.
Et on n'est pas assez nombreux.
Thanks for watching. Now hit that like button and leave us a comment to let us know what you think about anything that we covered this week. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Does anyone really call it X? Facebook and Instagram for updates from the show. Links are in the description.